Hey guys, Titi here. This is the look I have for you guys today, so let's get into it. Off camera, I did my brows and my skin prep. I'm just going in with my blending brush to blend out the excess concealer from concealing my brows. Moisturizing your lips is a must, so make sure you don't skip this step. Dry, chapped, and crusty lips are absolutely unacceptable, okay? Going in with my Plouise base in the shade Rumour 5, I'm just going to blend this all over my lids. I love this eyeshadow base because even though it's quite thick, it's also very blendable, grips onto your shadows beautifully, and helps with pigmentation. I'm just going to set lightly with a little bit of translucent powder. I'm setting everywhere except my inner lids because I need it to be tacky for the shadow I'm going to lay down there later on. Going in with this brown eyeshadow color as my transition shade, I'm just going to blend this all over my eyes. I'm blending this into my crease, my brow bone area, the inner portions of my eyes, and also the outer corners of my eyes, basically everywhere except my actual inner lids. And I really love this eyeshadow because it's very pigmented, it goes on so smoothly, and it's very buildable. This eye look is quite identical to the one in my previous tutorial, just with the addition of this deeper brown shade. I'm just going to take this color and I'm going to put it in my crease. I'm blending it, but I'm making sure not to blend it up too high so it doesn't completely rule out the transition shade, which is the first shade that I laid down. And you can kind of see a gradient effect between where the lighter brown and the darker brown shade meet, although it's very well blended. I'm just going in without any extra eyeshadow base on my brush just to make sure there's no creasing before I go in with my lead color, which is this brown nude shadow, and I'm just pressing and patting this on very gently so there's no patchiness and it just goes on very smoothly. This is my go-to eyeshadow look for days where I don't have anything specific planned out. I'm just going back in with my blending brush to blend around and make sure there are no harsh lines. Using this soft black gel pencil, I'm just going to put it on my lash line and going with my smudge brush to smudge this out a little bit. I don't want a defined liner look, so I'm not going to wing this out. When using a gel liner, you want to work really fast so you can smudge it out before it dries down. I'm going in with some black eyeshadow to mattify it and smudge it out even more. I'm going to do the same thing on the other eye, and yeah, voila, we're done with the eyes. Moving on to skin, I'm using this e.l.f. Poreless primer. I do prefer the Power Grip primer, so if you have to choose one or the other, I would recommend you try out the Power Grip one. I decided to go in with this Maybelline Matte and Poreless foundation today because I haven't used this in a while and I really like the coverage. I have this in the darkest shade that they carry. It gives a very soft matte finish, although this did not hold up fantastic throughout the day. After about 5 hours, it started lifting a little bit, but it wasn't extremely terrible. Maybe it's because of the way I prepped my skin underneath, I don't know, but that was the first time this was happening. I've never had that happen with this foundation before, so I guess it was something with the base that was making it do that. I like my foundation to be medium coverage, so I usually use 2 pumps for my whole face. Moving on to my highlight and contour, I like to use as little concealer as possible and then go back in with extra if need be after blending it out. For my contour, I like to place it high up on my cheekbones. I notice that when I place it a little bit lower, it usually gives my face more of a drooping effect. Contouring is not one size fits all, so you have to understand your face shape in order for you to contour it in the best way that is going to be flattering for your face, okay? This Revolution concealer is top notch. Like, I can't tell you enough good things about this concealer. This was the very first concealer that actually showed up on my deep dark skin as like a contour product and not just flat out the same shade as my foundation. Like, this actually really shows up, and when you blend it out, it doesn't just disappear into thin air like a lot of other products. Like, you can see the depth that it gives. It's a little subtle, but it's there. Going in with a damp, not wet, not dry beauty sponge, I'm going to start blending out my highlights. I usually like to place my highlights and then go in to blend out my contour first because it just gives the highlights some time to sit and dry down a little bit, which enhances the coverage. I could never try this with the e.l.f. Camo Concealer, the matte one, because if I left that concealer for this long under my eyes, I will literally have to wipe this whole base down and start all over again, because once that concealer dries, it does not move. I usually like to be very precise when I'm blending out my highlights because I like more of a lifted look. I like my face to look very lifted. When blending, I usually work interchangeably between my sponge and my foundation brush just to make sure that everything is blending seamlessly into each other and there are no harsh lines. I blend between where the highlight ends and the contour begins. That way it gives me a blended effect where the two transition into each other. For my reverse contour, I'm just taking the excess concealer left on my sponge, so I'm not adding any extra product. I like to be very careful with this because I don't like that harsh reverse contour effect. I'm just going back in with my brush and blending again. I'm going to take a little bit of this Revolution concealer to add a little bit of extra brightness and coverage, and I'm just blending it out with my damp beauty sponge again. Can you see how well blended everything looks? There are no harsh lines. The concealer is concealing, the contour is contouring, everything is just giving. Moving on to setting, I'm using a little amount of powder at a time and tapping off the excess on the back of my hands before going on to my face. When setting, I gradually build up my powder as opposed to going in with a large amount at a time, because this just prevents it from looking cakey and patchy. The powder I'm using is the RCMA No Color powder, which is a translucent powder that looks like it has a stark white color, which is what I think scares a lot of people, especially my dark skin babes, from using this powder. Hear me out. This powder is fantastic. I have a handful of setting powders in my collection, and this is the one I find myself reaching for the most. It doesn't emphasize texture, it gives a very blurred and smooth effect. It doesn't have any pigment, so it won't alter the color of your foundation or your concealer. It photographs beautifully, and did I already say this powder is 100% flashback proof? I'm lightly setting all over my face before going in with my powder contour. A lot of the products that I'm using in this tutorial are gems for dark skin. Like, these products are just too good. This contour palette is almost too dark for me. I have to go in very sparingly with the product, as you can see, and it just gives a very beautiful finish. The pigmentation is amazing and it's very, very, very affordable. This Juvia's Place blush, like, at this point, if you know me, you have to know this blush, because when you see her, you see me. When you see me, you see her. This palette is so pigmented. You have to dip your brush very carefully in the palette before you put it on your face, or else you're going to be left with a large amount of blush that you're wondering how you're going to blend out. I have to say, blush application is one of my favorite steps in my makeup routine. Like, it just makes me so happy. Like, I might be serious the whole tutorial, but once I'm getting to the blush aspect, my face starts softening up and you just see me smiling a little bit because it just makes me so happy. The fact that I'm just doing this voiceover 1 year after filming this video is beyond me. Life has been lifing, okay? Just blending that dark brown shade that I use in my crease on the bottom of my eyes before running my black liner on my waterline and then smudging it out with a little bit of black eyeshadow. Lashes on. Moving on to one of my favorite parts, my lips. I always use translucent powder on my lips before going in with my liner, and I learned this from Mela Child. This just helps the liner glide on easily and also helps the longevity. This Nima Tang Dose of Colors lip collaboration, like, gasp, too good. Okay, it's okay, I'll do a dedicated review to this, but naturally my instinct was to go with a nude lip, but I decided to switch it up and use these two lipsticks from MAC, Ruby Woo and Lady Danger Iconic. I and red lipstick do not have the best relationship, but that is story for another day, and I think this actually turned out beautifully. I think I used Lady Danger to brighten Ruby Woo a little bit because it was looking a little bit dark. Going in with some setting spray, I'm using my sponge to press in the excess setting spray into my skin. If you take away anything from this video, the contour palette, the blush palette, and the Nima Tang lip set, I highly recommend more than anything else. You will definitely not regret it. So we've come to the end of this video, and I leave you guys with this question: is it even legal for one person to possess this amount of beauty? Hey, gosh. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. See you in my next one. Bye. All products are listed in the description box. Okay.